And we're back with another episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm Monique Marvez, stand-up and media personality, and Dr. Raban is a board-certified plastic surgeon here in Beverly Hills. Did I get all of the facts right?
You got all of them.
All right.
My mom would be proud.
Thank you. So we're talking eyes today.
That is correct.
The eyes have it.
The eyes are the window to the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Or in this instance, they could be the chimney to the soul, depending on what kind of eyes
The
you have.
chimney.
So, the thing, it's interesting. People only really become aware of eyes in their sort of late 40s. No, that's not true. Their 40s and 50s is where eyes become more of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, it's, you don't think much about your eyes. You're more worried about your breasts or your nose or the fat on your belly or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we want to do is, first thing we want to do is, let's talk about what does actually happen to your eyes. And what we call it periocular, which means around your eyes. Peri being around and ocular eyes. Periocular rejuvenation. What happens around your eyes that makes you look old?
Okay.
So what are those things? So the first thing you're going to notice, it's interesting. The first thing patients do is they come and say, when I'm putting on makeup.
I knew you were going to say that because my mom always, now she has this thing about, I have to hold my eye.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So the first sign, most men have a different sign. Men's sign is when they can't see.
Mr. Magoo.
So men come when they can no longer see out of their eyes because the top of their eyelids is hanging over their eyelashes. So
Wow.
that's really late. Women come right at their late 30s, early 40s because as they start to put on makeup, sometimes they start to notice that the makeup smudges and that it's more effortful to put on their makeup. So the question then is, what the hell is happening? And even though people think they have more eyelid skin, because they'll come in.
The crepey lid. You get the crepey
They'll come
lid.
in and they'll grab their eyelid. The truth is, the first thing to happen is that your eyebrows start to sag. And as your eyebrows start to sag, you get what's called hooding, or hooding is referring to the hanging over your eyelids. So what happens?
Sounds bad.
I know. Anything with the word hood in it. Is
Doesn't
not
it?
good. Yeah.
It sounds snaky.
Yeah. So you get hooding, and that means that your eyebrows start to sag. And then you start to generate a little extra eyelid skin. So eyes are broken up into little segments. So the first thing that you need to know is your eyebrows are part of your eye.
The periocular
Right.
situation.
Right. Your eyebrows are part of your eye cosmetics or aesthetics. So when your brows are misshapen or unattractive, meaning pointing downwards, they make your eyes look old and unattractive. Mm-hmm. So that sometimes happens by age because the sides of your eyes, the tail, start to drop. Or, unfortunately, you were just very unlucky and your eyebrows just had bad shape to begin with.
Some people have those kind of bedroom eyes where everything's going down even when they're little.
Right. And as a result, what do women do? They pluck their eyebrows with high arch. They pencil in their eyebrows with high arch. And then, they try to do things like Botox and things like that to get their arch because the arch is desirable. So number one thing that happens is your brows start to sag. The second thing that happens is that you generate some extra eyelid skin.
Why?
Because we always generate skin as we get older. Your breast generates skin, your belly generates skin, your neck generates skin. That's just what we do. We're skin generating
Sounds
machines.
like a loose slip cover. It's just sad.
So you get excess eyelid skin.
Okay.
And then you switch gears to the lower eyelid.
Okay,
And-
this part.
Right. And several things
Lower
happen
lid.
to the lower eyelid that makes them age. Number one, the bags, which are always there, begin to come out and show themselves more. So you get puffiness of your bags, right?
Okay.
Second thing is you get a little bit of loose skin underneath your eyes, which is the crepey eyelid skin that everyone talks about. When they smile, it crepes, etc.
Right here.
And the last thing is you get a little bit of a hollow in front of the bag, which is we call that a tear trough, but the hollowing. So
This is terrible.
I know
The hooding and the hollowing
all
and the
these H words,
sleepy hollow. It sounds
Horrible.
like a horror, like the Headless Horseman.
horrible headless horseman hollow hooding. So those are the changes that one can experience. In addition, from smiling a lot, you get the crow's feet. So when you look at somebody and you're like, wow, I was looking at my pictures the other day, and when I was in my 20s, I had such beautiful eyes, and now I'm in my 50s and my eyes don't look so good. It's probable that a number of the things I just mentioned have happened.
It's likely. So my question to you is, then what? Like people come into you and they, what?
Tape. You just tape everything up.
Okay. Now there's options. There's different options. So let's take it from the least to the, like, okay, when the guys have the the
Well,
eyelids.
let's start with the least.
Okay, let's start with
So-
least.
So you can approach things early on
Okay.
with a non-surgical approach.
Oh, there is a
which everyone loves. You know my philosophy on non-surgical. Non-surgical usually means
Non-effective.
non-effective. But if you are in the early phases and you're beginning to have some of these signs, there are definitely things you can do in the non-surgical arena that will be helpful. So what
Okay.
are they? Number one, great skincare. Why? Because the crepey skin underneath your eyes is often due to the elasticity of your eye skin. And so when people take good care with like Retin A, which actually works,
Retin A actually
100%,
works.
one of the only things that works.
And that's old school. That's been
That's
around
like-
since the 80s.
It's even been longer. It's been
Wow.
around since. So every skincare product in the world
Uh-huh.
that is effective, if you read the ingredients, the main ingredient is Retin A. The ocean salt and the desert sand and the acai berry and the pigeon's fur, all that extra crap,
Pigeon fur.
whatever it is done to marketing, is all bullshit.
Uh-huh.
It's the actual Retin A that's doing the work. Okay.
Okay.
So that's number one. So you want to take good care of your skin. The second thing you want to do, okay, is you can do a little bit of Botox
Mhm.
in order to create a softening around the eye and also potentially raise the eyebrow. Now, here's the kicker. Botox does not raise eyebrows. So I'm going to repeat it
I've
again.
heard that. I've
Right.
heard that it does.
This is a myth, and we'll have another section where we're going to talk about how that is a myth or
It's just been generated.
but what it does is Botox, when you inject it, it paralyzes muscle, gets rid of wrinkles, and it can actually and usually causes the eyebrows to come down. So if it's done incorrectly, when you present with heavy eyebrows, your eyebrows will actually get worse. So
Hoodier.
Hoodier, yes, if there's such a word. So you have to inject the Botox in a pattern that causes the eyebrows to raise rather than to fall. So you can do some Botox, and then you can use some filler. Now, filler is interesting. Filler does what? Fill.
Fills.
And what you're going to do is you cannot get rid of bags by filling because you're adding to something that's full. What you do is you camouflage the bags by filling the hollow in front of it. So if you imagine you have a little mound, that mound is fat,
Mhm.
and then you fill around that mound until the surface around the mound is up to the level of the mound. And that actually makes the bags look like they go away. So you can camouflage the bags, which works quite effectively when done
Surrounding
correctly.
it with little bags. So you've got the suitcase in the middle, and then you do all the carry-ons
No,
around it.
Not so, but yes, maybe I'm not the visual may not work for most.
Okay.
So those kinds of things, skincare, Botox, a little bit of filler, they work very well.
Mhm.
So that's a non-surgical. But let's be honest, that's only going to work for a period of time.
Sure.
And most people present when things are pretty bad off. And of course, they would love to have a non-surgical approach, but it's just not going to work. And so the idea of like, oh, I don't want to have surgery, I'm against, then just leave it.
Live
but-
with it.
Yeah, but the worst thing you can do is you see all these older patients who present with kind of funny looking eyes because they're doing all this non-surgical crap it's making them look a little bit weird. So what are the treatments surgically?
Okay.
Brows. Brow lift. You do a brow lift. You actually remove, like a facelift, the excess skin where the brows have caused them to sag. And what that will do will lift up your brow, create a better shape, and open up your eyes so that hooding is not so heavy. So you can actually see through your eyes. And if people do that all the time with their fingers in front of the mirror, they put it on the side of their brows
Yeah, yeah.
and they lift hey, Dr. Ron, I would love it if my eyes just look like this.
The Nora Desmond.
Right. So
I'm ready for my close-up.
So you do the brow lift, and where do we do the brow lift? You usually do it in the hairline, so it's hidden. The scar's hidden in the hair.
So you pull all the way from up here?
correct.
Oh, wow.
Or there's a process called endoscopic brow where they do little openings and stuff. Not a huge fan of it because, as I said to you, it usually leads to not as effective a result. But the bottom line is that all you need to know is that saggy brows need a brow lift.
Okay.
The upper eyelids,
Uh-huh.
they need an upper blepharoplasty, which means an upper eyelid skin removal. So you remove some of the excess skin in the upper eyelids.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of it is the scar hides in the fold of the eye if done correctly and heals incredibly well. So brow lift,
Mhm.
eyelids, excess skin, and then comes the danger zone.
Uh-oh.
So when you look at all these actors, Kenny Rogers,
Wayne Newton looks a little
Wayne
weird.
Newton, I think it's
Renee Zellweger doesn't even look like herself.
right. They all had lower eyelid lower eyelid surgery. And so let me explain something to you. The reason why eye surgery is so tricky, so dangerous, and so powerful is it can physically and fully change the way you look, and it's usually not for the better. So what happens with lower eyelid skin is you go in there and try to remove the extra eyelid skin, and you go in there and try to remove the extra eyelid fat, and as a result, you change the position of where the eyelid is relative to the eye. And so one of two things happen. A, your eyelids your eyes get smaller and they begin to look beady. So a lot of the males who have had, I think Kenny Rogers is an example, have beady little eyes.
He does look very
Right.
like
And
he
so-
spent some time in
so-
the Far East.
So when you look at someone's eyes, you're looking at the amount of white. We call that the sclera, the white portion.
Right.
So, oh my God, look how beautiful and large her eyes are. Well, it's the eye is large because there's a big opening. So when you do eyelid surgery and you lift up the eyelid and tuck it to make it tighter, often when it's done incorrectly, you make the eyelid opening smaller, and that makes your eyes look beady.
Beady, hooding, bad.
That's bad. The other, and equally, if not worse outcome, is that you make the eyelid opening larger. And so that happens when you remove way too much skin. And then as the eyelid heals, it pulls the eyelid down.
And they've got a lot of white under the color.
Correct.
Ooh, that's very unattractive.
And that's called scleral show, meaning the sclera, the white part, is showing. And that makes you look really old because you have that old eyelid pull down look. So in general, I would caution people when they're considering generally eyelid surgery, but definitely lower eyelid surgery, because it can, in many, many ways, make your eyes less attractive and generally very undesirable. And,
And it can change your, like in general, your
no,
look.
that's it.
Your
Totally.
whole face can look totally different if your eyes are
Right.
jacked.
And the last part is sort of the sandpaper, which is you can add a little bit of volume around the eyes. And there's a lot of people that do fat transfer, because fat transfer is really popular in the butt, in the breast, in the face, this, that, the other.
Where do you get the fat?
You can get it from the belly, you can get it from the thighs, etc. The issue is fat around the eyes is very difficult to do, because fat in the cheeks, you have a lot of camouflage. You have a lot of covering over the fat. Fat around the eyes, you have really thin paper skin around the eyes. So if the fat within the eyes doesn't heal well, it becomes very lumpy, bumpy. So I'm very opposed to fat around the eyes. I think it's incredibly difficult to do. And I would caution you when people are just very lackadaisical when suggesting it.
Some people can be just so cavalier with, oh, just do this. I mean,
Not some people, most people.
and it's not that easy. All right. We're going to leave it there for right now because I want to come back. Well, not just me. I think the listeners want us to come back and talk about the costs and the pitfalls and what to, we've already talked about some of the pitfalls, but there's also recovery. And I think some of that's underestimated as well.
Definitely.
It's what to expect. Let's just call it that. How about that? All right. This is we're wrapping up a segment of Plastic Surgery Uncensored with board certified plastic surgeon Dr. Roddy Raban, and I'm Monique Marvez. Stay tuned. And we're back with Plastic Surgery Uncensored. I'm Monique Marvez. This is Dr. Roddy Raban, and we were doing all about eyes, and we had hoodies and it's scary.
A lot of H's.
A lot of H's and beady. Beady's never good. I want to go back over the pitfalls a little bit because while we were even talking off mic, it's so important that people know how delicate and fragile the eye actually is and how easy it is to kind of jack them up. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. I think that in general, obviously you don't want to have complications with any surgery that you do. But I think the eyes, as you said, there's a little margin for error. It's very expensive real estate. And if you notice little changes in the eye, kind of similar to the nose, but definitely more in the eye, little changes go very far. So if for a couple of millimeters may ultimately really make you look great, but usually make you look much worse. So let's talk about some of the risks or the pitfalls. So one of the biggest pitfalls, I like to do things systematically. My background's in engineering. So I like to work from the top down. So we talked about brow lifts. What's the pitfall in brow lift? First of all, there's a very important nerve. That's the nerve that allows you to raise your eyebrow. So when I say, hey, raise your eyebrow, and you go, oh, cool. What is that? That's a nerve. It's your facial nerve. It's the frontal branch, meaning the branch that it goes to the front of your head, and it allows you to raise your eyebrows. Well, when you do a brow lift, that nerve is in the middle of that area, and it can get damaged during friendly fire. So when someone goes in there to do a brow lift, they can damage the frontal nerve, which then will leave your brows paralyzed. It's usually not both brows. It's one brow, so it causes a huge, huge problem.
So you look semi-surprised.
It's terrible outcome. Second thing is that obviously the scar can be unsightly. The whole point of any kind of cosmetic surgery is to have hidden scars. So your brow lift scars need to be very well closed and very well hidden. Sometimes they're in front of your hairline and it's visible to anybody. That's your brow. When it comes to your eyelids, the number one issue is the upper eyelid removing too much. So if you remove, what is your upper eyelid? It's a garage door, right? It's a garage door that closes and opens your eyes. What is it designed to do? Forget about the fact
Open and close.
it's designed to protect your eye.
Well, yeah.
So at night when you sleep, your eye covers up your
Eyeball.
globe and your cornea and prevents it from drying out and getting corneal abrasions. So when the weather's dry, what do? You do a ton of blinking. You're resetting the lubrication in your eye. So one really dangerous pitfall of upper eyelid surgery is that you go in there and you're super excited. Your surgeon's extra cavalier removes way too much skin and you can no longer close your eyes adequately.
I've seen that, a little gap.
Right. It's called lag ophthalmos, which means not able to close your eyes. So what happens? You get corneal abrasion. You get constant tearing because you can't close your eyes and the cornea dries out. You need to tape your eyes closed. You need to cover it up with masks. You got to put patches at night. It's a catastrophe. And as we know, once you've removed it, you really can't put it back.
No.
So that's the upper eyelids.
Okay.
The lower eyelids. The lower eyelids, we talked about two major complications that you need to be careful of. Number one is when they try to lift up the eyelid to make the suspended or support it, they can make your eyes too small, in which case, my God, it looks awful. You have what we call the beady eye syndrome. And then the bigger and more dangerous problem is when they remove too much skin from the lower eyelid, thereby creating scar tissue, which then pulls your eyelid down. The term for that is ectropion. And
that even sounds bad.
Yeah, the ectropion means that your eye is pulled down and it creates, again, drying out of the eye because you can't close the eye, which then leads to tearing and ducts and issues like that. The last thing I'm going to impart is injecting things around the eye. And one of them is filler around the eye or fat around the eye. And so if you inject a product that goes into one of the arteries, it can make you blind.
Ooh.
So when you get filler injected around the eye, you want to make sure it's done with a cannula, not a needle. It's done with someone that has incredible knowledge and skill of the anatomy, which in my opinion is someone who's been very well trained. And you make sure that you don't overdo it. So in my opinion, those are the real main pitfalls and risks of periocular rejuvenation.
All right. Now you go to the best guy. You're here at your office, and you're saying, I want no hoodie, no beanie, no, what's that horrible place with the yeah, that sounds like a planet where people with weird eyes live. What's this going to cost me?
Again, cost is one of those things that I guess we need to talk about, but then I'm always reluctant to talk about.
Well, people want to save.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. I always try to give as large a reasonable range. I think brow lift, you're looking somewhere between 7 to 12. I think, and everything we talk about is obviously in thousands. I think eyelids, upper, you're looking at 3 to 5. Lowers, you're looking from 3 to 7. Lowers being a little bit more complicated. Again, as I always, every time we talk about costs, I say if it costs a lot more than that, then you're paying for a label, aka, I want to go to that guy from the TV show X, Y, and Z. And if you pay a lot less than that, I assure you, you're not going to be getting, something is being cut out. Tippy. You're missing a tire out of the 4 tires of your car. In regards to recovery, which I think is really, really important, and I'll probably end with that, is Like everything, you got to make sure you have enough time. There's no weekend nothing. If there's no weekend, hey, can I do this on Friday?
I know you're not a fan of Mini. The Mini eyelid.
Yeah, because it's just insane. Because
he doesn't even like Mini Coopers.
Well, my wife had a Mini Cooper. It's dear and near to me, but that's the only Mini I like.
Okay, fair enough.
And Minnie Mouse, but you want to do it on Friday and you want to be back on work on Monday. And if your doctor says, sure, no problem, again, red flag. So eyelids and brows and all these things, you want to give yourself about 7 to 10 days.
Okay.
Where you're not going to be at work and you're going to rest.
That's a full week.
Yes, that's a minimum. Your bruising may last 2 weeks. So don't plan an Oscar. Don't go to a wedding. Don't plan a bar mitzvah. Literally give yourself 7 to 10 days, probably 7 to 14 days before you go back into major public. And you want to give yourself about 4 to 6 weeks before you go back to exercise. That's really the recovery.
I think that's all fair. So you've told us all of the pitfalls. If somebody gets the bad planet, that thing.
Ectropion,
Yeah, that guy. If they get that, or can you even fix that?
Listen, revisions or correction of bad surgery is always dependent on how bad we're talking. But I would tell you the eyelids are very unforgiving. You have a botched breast surgery, often we have some workability. The eyelids, because of their expensive real estate and the fragility of that structure, there isn't a lot you can do at that point. So it definitely is not somewhere that you're like, well, if it doesn't go great, I'll just do a second time. Like, it's just not the case.
It's a one shot. And in the case of like like you say, the men that come with the eyelid, like, isn't that dangerous? Are some of these things covered by insurance?
Yeah, I think, listen, in plastic surgery, there's not a lot of things that are covered by insurance because for the most part, most things are considered aesthetic and not functional.
Right.
But definitely eyelids and brows can be considered functional because when they become extremely heavy and saggy, they do what's called upper visual field obstruction, which means they block your ability to see up and outward. So like, for example, you're driving and then you look up at a red light or a sign. If your brows and your eyelids are so heavy that they're covering your ability to see, it's considered a visual obstruction. In those instances, and only those 2 instances, you might be able to find that your insurance will cover it. My caution to you is, not always, but often the individuals who take your insurance may not be the ones who do the best aesthetic or cosmetic job. So yes, they're covered. Yes, you don't have to pay much out of pocket, but no, he or she may not be the best surgeon to do it cosmetically. Because remember, you have 2 goals here. One is I want to see better, and the other is I want to look better. And so I would just caution you that when you go about it, the insurance route, just make sure that your surgeon is very skilled at the cosmetic aspects.
This still comes down to the real estate.
You always want to look good.
Ultimately, it comes down to that. All right. So as we wrap up this episode of Plastic Surgery Uncensored with Dr. Radi Raban, I always like to have like a parting thought. I think eyes are the place in your face that you very much don't want to gamble. You don't want to roll the bones on that. You want to make absolutely certain that you're extremely clear with what you want and that you've got the best person to do it.
Yes, I agree. Eyes, definitely less is more.
And that wraps up another, can I say, compelling, exciting, and insightful episode? Can I say all of these things?
You can, because you're biased, but that's okay.
No, truly, I'm learning as we go. Of Plastic Surgery Uncensored with Monique Marvez and board-certified Beverly Hills plastic surgeon, Dr. Radi Raban.